Ronan gave Elena exactly 20 minutes to become someone his family would underestimate. She traded the black sweater for a cream silk blouse from the emergency wardrobe in the safe house, pinned her dark hair low at the nape of her neck, and slid the recovered drive into the hidden pocket of her coat. When she stepped into the garage, Ronan was waiting beside a black sedan in a midnight suit, every trace of the tattooed man from the night before concealed beneath white cuffs and an Irish green tie. "You look harmless," he said. "You look expensive. That's the point." 40 minutes later, wrought iron gates opened onto the Kearney estate on Chicago's North Shore. The house rose behind bare trees in pale limestone and black glass, its windows glowing gold against the darkness. Tires whispered over wet gravel. Inside, the air smelled of polished oak, peat smoke, and roasted beef, while low conversation drifted from a dining room large enough to seat 20. Elena counted cameras before she counted relatives. Ronan noticed. Still planning exits? Always. His hand settled briefly at the center of her back as a silver-haired woman approached. The gesture looked effortless from across the room, but Elena felt the warning in it. Stay close. "Mother," Ronan said, "this is Elena Vitale. She's consulting on several financial irregularities." Maeve Kearney's smile remained perfect. "Vitale." Her eyes sharpened for half a second. "Interesting choice." "Mine," Ronan said. One word. No explanation. Around the table sat Ronan's father Declan, 2 cousins, an aunt, 3 senior men Elena recognized from business filings, and Seamus Kearney, Ronan's uncle, seated near the head with a crystal glass of whiskey between his fingers. Dinner moved through careful conversation about development permits, campaign donors, construction contracts, and people whose names carried more weight than their job titles suggested. Elena said little. She watched hands, eyes, the pause before answers. Ronan played his part differently. He laughed when expected, discussed city council polling, and never once looked like the man who had pulled her behind a kitchen island hours earlier. Then Elena acted. She reached for her water glass and said, almost casually, "One of the legacy accounts I reviewed uses an unusual internal designation. Black Harbor." The effect lasted less than 2 seconds. Declan kept cutting his steak. Maeve reached for wine. One cousin frowned as if the phrase meant nothing. But Seamus stopped rotating the whiskey glass. Not dramatically, just enough for the ice cube inside to stop clicking against crystal. Elena continued before anyone could recover. Probably an outdated bookkeeping label. Seamus lifted his eyes. "Where did you see that?" Ronan set his knife down. "Why?" "Curiosity." Seamus smiled, but the skin around his eyes did not move. "Black Harbor hasn't been used since the old port accounts were reorganized." Elena let 3 beats pass. "I never said it was connected to the port." Silence settled over the table. The fireplace cracked behind them, throwing warm light across Seamus's face. Ronan looked at Elena, then at his uncle. Seamus recovered first. "You implied it." "No," Elena said. "I didn't." Under the table, Ronan's hand closed once around the edge of his chair, but his voice stayed calm. "Elena is here because someone manipulated records tied to Patrick's death." Every conversation in the room vanished. Declan's fork touched china with a soft metallic tap. Seamus leaned back. "And you brought her here?" "I did." "The woman you spent 11 months hunting?" Ronan's gaze never left his uncle. "I changed my mind." Seamus looked at Elena as though reassessing her value in real time. "That can be dangerous in this family." Elena placed her napkin beside her untouched plate and stood. Before anyone else could move, Ronan stood with her. Seamus's smile faded. "Sit down, Ronan." Ronan buttoned his jacket. "No, this is family business." Ronan stepped beside Elena instead of away from her. "Tonight, she is family business." Ronan did not move when Seamus ordered him to sit, and Elena noticed every person at the table waiting to see which man would blink first. Firewood snapped in the stone hearth behind them, filling the dining room with the scent of smoke and cedar, while rain whispered against the tall windows facing Lake Michigan. Elena touched Ronan's sleeve once. Not affection. A signal. "Actually," she said, returning to her chair, "there's something I'd like Mr. Kearney to clarify." Ronan understood immediately and sat beside her. Seamus remained standing for another beat before lowering himself into his chair. Elena opened the slim notebook she had carried inside her coat. "Black Harbor moved money through 17 consulting entities," she said. Most transfers were small enough to disappear inside operating expenses. Seamus lifted his whiskey, and Elena deliberately turned to the wrong page. One transfer caught my attention. $480,000 routed through Lakeshore Municipal Strategies. Ronan said nothing. Elena had shown him the real figure in the car before dinner. It was $380,000. The extra $100,000 existed only in her sentence. Seamus took a drink. You're mistaken. Elena tilted her head. Am I? That payment was $380. The ice inside his glass clicked once. Nobody at the table moved. Elena closed the notebook. Interesting. Seamus's fingers tightened around the crystal. Ronan's voice became very quiet. How would you know that? I've seen thousands of accounts. Not this one, Elena said. The original record was erased 11 months ago. Seamus looked at her, and the polished family host expression disappeared. Elena continued before he could interrupt. The copy I recovered has never been shown to anyone in this room, except Ronan. Declan pushed his chair back slightly. Maeve's wineglass stopped halfway to her lips. Seamus turned toward Ronan. You brought a stranger into this house to test me? Ronan rose. This time the movement was slower. Final. I brought the woman I nearly killed because someone made her look responsible for Patrick's death. Elena stood beside him. Seamus's mouth hardened. And now you believe her, because she played a bookkeeping trick? I believe what I can verify. Ronan picked up Elena's coat and handed it to her. And tonight, you verified something for us. Seamus came around the table. Two men near the doorway straightened, but Ronan shifted half a step in front of Elena before either could approach. The gesture was instinctive enough that Elena saw it before Ronan seemed to realize he had done it. Move away from her, Seamus said. Ronan did not. The room smelled suddenly stronger of peat smoke and hot wax from the candles between them. She leaves with me. You spent almost a year telling this family Elena Vitale was responsible for Patrick, Seamus said. Now, after one night, you're protecting her from us? Ronan's eyes never left his uncle. I'm protecting her from whoever wanted me to kill her before she could prove they lied. Seamus stepped closer until barely 3 feet separated them. Then understand what you're choosing. He looked past Ronan at Elena. By 8 tomorrow morning, she comes back here with every file she has, or every protection attached to the Kearney name disappears, including the men guarding her father. Elena's hand tightened around her coat. Ronan's expression went still. Seamus smiled without warmth. 8 o'clock, Ronan. Bring me the woman, or choose her over your own family. By 7:30 the next evening, Elena was walking into a ballroom full of people who would have preferred her dead if Ronan had not been standing beside her. Crystal chandeliers burned above the marble floor. A string quartet played near the stage, and the room smelled of champagne, expensive perfume, and beeswax from hundreds of candles arranged between white roses. The fundraiser was packed with Chicago donors, judges, developers, and political operatives who smiled at Ronan as though his family name belonged on campaign posters instead of police intelligence files. Elena wore black because Ronan had told her not to. He noticed the moment she stepped from the car. You enjoy making instructions useless. Only bad ones. Now his hand rested lightly at her back as they crossed the ballroom, not guiding her so much as warning everyone watching that she was under his protection. Seamus's deadline had passed hours earlier. Ronan had neither returned Elena nor surrendered the files. Instead, he had doubled the guards around Marco Vitale and brought Elena directly into a public room where attacking her would create witnesses. You realize bringing me here looks like a declaration, Elena murmured. Ronan accepted 2 glasses of sparkling water from a passing server and handed her one. It is. Against your uncle? Against anyone who thinks you're still available to be removed. The words landed differently than his threats had 11 months ago, and Elena covered the pause by drinking. Across the ballroom, Seamus was speaking with 3 city officials beneath a banner announcing a mayoral exploratory committee. He saw them. His expression never changed, but one hand tightened around the stem of his glass. Ronan saw that too. Stay where I can see you. Elena gave him a flat look. We've discussed your relationship with orders. Humor me for 5 minutes. 4. Ronan moved toward a donor approaching from the stage, leaving Elena near a row of auction tables. She examined a framed architectural rendering while tracking him in the reflection of its glass. He was less than 30 feet away. Then someone bumped her shoulder. A man in a tuxedo apologized without looking at her, and continued toward the exit. Elena felt paper against her palm. She opened her fingers beneath the tablecloth. A folded card. Her first instinct was to call Ronan. Her second was to open it before anyone could take that choice from her. For words were written in black ink. Ronan killed his brother. Elena looked up. Ronan was laughing at something a councilman had said. Perfect posture. Perfect suit. Perfect control. Then his gaze found hers, and the laughter vanished from his face. He crossed the room immediately. What happened? Elena folded the card before he reached her. Nothing. Ronan stopped. You're a terrible liar, and you're becoming irritatingly observant. His eyes dropped to her closed hand. Elena stepped back. For once, he did not reach for her. Show me. No, the quartet shifted into a slower piece behind them. Glasses clinked. Applause rose briefly near the stage, surrounding their silence with ordinary elegance. Ronan lowered his voice. Elena. She studied him. This was the same man who had once entered her apartment prepared to decide whether she lived. The note told her that perhaps he had done something worse. Instead of giving it to him, she walked toward the terrace doors. Ronan followed. Cold air struck them outside, carrying the smell of lake water and wet stone. Elena stopped beneath a row of golden wall lamps and held up the card. Someone wants me to believe you killed Patrick. Ronan went completely still. Give me that. Tell me why they think I might believe it. He stepped closer. Because whoever wrote it needs you to stop trusting me. Elena did not retreat. That isn't an answer. His jaw tightened. Then ask the question you actually want answered. She held the note between them. Did you have anything to do with your brother's death? Ronan looked at her for a long moment, then opened the terrace door behind him and locked it, shutting both of them away from the ballroom. No more half-truths, he said. You want to know what happened between Patrick and me that night? Fine. But once I tell you, you don't get to pretend I'm just the man who hunted you anymore. Ronan did not answer immediately, and that silence told Elena more than any denial could have. Cold wind moved across the terrace, lifting loose strands of her hair and carrying the mineral smell of Lake Michigan over the stone railing. Behind the locked glass doors, the quartet played on beneath golden chandeliers, muffled now to a distant pulse of strings and applause. You said you'd tell me, Elena said. Ronan looked toward the ballroom instead of at her. Patrick and I fought that night. About what? He wanted out of something I told him he couldn't walk away from. Elena's fingers tightened around the anonymous card. Something involving Black Harbor? I didn't know that name then. That wasn't my question. His eyes returned to hers. I don't know. Elena gave a short, disbelieving breath. Convenient. True. Those aren't the same thing. Ronan stepped closer, then stopped before entering her space. Months earlier, she suspected, he would not have bothered with that distinction. Patrick left my house angry, he said. 4 hours later, he was dead. I spent 11 months looking for someone to blame because the alternative was admitting I didn't understand what my own brother was doing. Elena studied him beneath the terrace lamps. His face stayed controlled, but his thumb repeatedly brushed the edge of his cuff link. Once, twice, again, and I was your answer. Yes. You didn't investigate me, Ronan. You hunted me. I know. You came into my apartment ready to kill me. His jaw tightened. I know. She stepped around him and unlocked the terrace door. Ronan caught the handle before she could open it. Elena turned sharply. Move. Someone inside that room put that note in your hand. And right now, I don't know whether they're more dangerous than you. His hand dropped from the door. The decision happened without argument. He reached into his jacket, removed the keys to the gray sedan, and placed them in Elena's palm. The metal was warm from his body. Garage level 3, he said. Take the car. Elena stared at the keys. What? If you think I'm the threat, leave. You spent 11 months preventing exactly that. And I was wrong. The words came quietly, almost lost beneath the music beyond the glass. Ronan opened the door himself. Warm ballroom air spilled around them, rich with perfume, champagne, and candle wax. Several people looked toward the terrace. Seamus was one of them. His attention went immediately to the keys in Elena's hand. You're just letting me walk out? She asked. Ronan's gaze moved across the ballroom, tracking every person between Elena and the elevators. No, I'm letting you choose whether you walk away from me. Elena looked toward the exit. 30 yards. A crowded room. A waiting car. Freedom, at least for tonight. She took one step inside. Ronan remained on the terrace. He did not follow. That disturbed her more than pursuit would have. Elena crossed half the ballroom before she stopped beside a mirrored column. In its reflection, she saw Seamus watching her. Then Ronan appeared behind the glass doors, still exactly where she had left him, giving her the distance he had never offered before. Elena closed her fist around the keys and turned back. She walked straight across the room until she stood in front of him again. "I still don't trust you," she said. Ronan's eyes dropped to the keys she placed against his chest. "Good." Elena released them. "But whoever wrote that note wants me away from you badly enough to risk getting close to me in a room full of witnesses." She opened the terrace door wider. "So until I know why, I'm staying." Ronan took the keys, but did not smile. "On whose terms?" Elena walked past him into the ballroom. "Mine." The elevator dropped so violently that Elena's knees slammed into the brass rail before the emergency lights turned red. Her champagne glass hit the marble-patterned floor and shattered, sending cold, sparkling water across her shoes as the car plunged beneath the ballroom. A metallic shriek tore through the shaft. Elena grabbed the handrail with both hands while the floor indicator flashed from 18 to 16, then went black. Ronan. She had left him less than 30 seconds earlier, after insisting she could reach the parking garage without an escort. The elevator lurched again. Her stomach rose into her throat. Somewhere above the ceiling, cables snapped against steel with a sound like whips striking metal. Elena hit the emergency button. Nothing. She pressed it again until her thumb hurt. The speaker produced only static. Then the elevator stopped. Not gently. Elena was thrown sideways against the wall, her shoulder striking polished wood hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. For 1 second, there was complete silence. Then came a grinding noise from above. The car slipped 6 inches. Elena looked up. "You have got to be kidding me." Above the ballroom, Ronan heard the alarm before anyone else reacted. He had been speaking to a campaign donor when the security panel beside the elevators flashed red. Car 3, brake failure. Elena had taken car 3. The donor was still talking when Ronan walked away. By the time the man called his name, Ronan was running. He hit the stairwell door with his shoulder and took the steps 3 at a time. His dress shoes hammered against concrete, and cold fluorescent light strobed over his face as he descended. "Elena." His voice echoed through the shaft when he reached the service landing on 14. A muffled answer came from below. "Still alive." Ronan ripped open the maintenance cabinet beside the elevator doors. The emergency brake override required a building key. He did not have one. He drove the heel of his hand into the plastic cover, broke the latch, and pulled the manual release. Somewhere inside the shaft, machinery groaned. "What are you doing?" Elena shouted. "Getting you out." That sounded disturbingly improvised. Ronan forced the outer doors apart 6 inches, then wider. The top third of the elevator car was visible below the floor line, suspended between levels. Elena looked up through the gap. Red emergency light washed across her face. "That seems bad. Stay where you are." "Excellent plan. I was considering sightseeing." The car slipped again. Ronan dropped flat onto the cold tile and reached down. "Elena, give me your hand." She stared at the 8-foot gap between them. "You can't pull me up from there. Give me your hand." "Ronan," the car groaned. He removed his suit jacket, wrapped it around his forearm for grip, and lowered himself until half his body extended into the shaft. "Now." Elena climbed onto the brass rail. The elevator trembled beneath her. She jumped. Ronan caught her wrist. His shoulder slammed against the doorway, but he held on. Elena swung against the concrete shaft wall, shoes scraping rough cement. "Don't let go." Wasn't planning to. His free hand caught her other arm. With one hard pull, he dragged her high enough to hook an elbow over the floor. Elena scrambled onto the tile, just as the elevator dropped several feet beneath them and stopped again with a thunderous clang. Ronan rolled her away from the opening and kicked the doors shut. For several seconds, neither moved. The stairwell smelled of concrete dust and overheated machinery. Ronan's breathing came hard against the quiet. Elena looked at his torn cuff, then at the hand still locked around hers. "You didn't even check whether there was another way." Ronan's grip loosened, but he did not release her. "There wasn't time." "You didn't know that." He finally looked at her. "I knew you were inside." Footsteps sounded from the stairwell above. Ronan stood immediately and pulled Elena behind him. Seamus appeared on the landing with 2 security men. His gaze moved from the damaged elevator doors to Ronan's scraped hands, then to Elena standing behind him. Interesting, Seamus said softly. A week ago, you wanted her dead. Ronan stepped between his uncle and Elena without hesitation. That was before. Seamus's eyes narrowed. Before what? Ronan did not answer. He simply reached back, found Elena's hand, and moved her farther behind him. Ronan knew something was wrong the moment Elena stopped making sarcastic comments. They had barely reached the underground garage beneath the fundraiser when one of his security men stepped from behind a concrete pillar and said, "We need a word." Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, washing the parked cars in hard white light, while the cold garage air smelled of exhaust and wet cement. Ronan kept Elena beside him. Then talk. The man glanced at her. Privately, Elena folded her arms. I'm suddenly fascinated. Ronan's expression flattened. Say it. The guard swallowed. Doyle questioned her earlier tonight, before the elevator incident. Elena's head turned. Ronan did not. Where? Service corridor. 10 minutes before she came back into the ballroom. The keys in Ronan's hand stopped moving. Elena had said nothing about it. What kind of questioning? The guard hesitated. That was enough. Ronan handed Elena the car keys. Stay here. Absolutely not. He looked at her. She held his gaze until he gave up pretending the order might work. Together they crossed the garage toward a secured operations room near the loading dock. Their footsteps echoed off concrete walls. Inside, 3 Kearney men stood around a bank of monitors. Doyle was among them, broad-shouldered, gray-haired, and old enough to have worked for Ronan's father before Ronan could drive. He looked surprised to see Elena. Ronan shut the door. The electronic lock clicked behind him. Tell me what happened, he said. Doyle straightened. I asked Ms. Vitale a few questions. You cornered me against a service door, Elena said. You took my phone, searched my coat, and told me accidents happen to people who create problems for the Kearneys. Doyle barely looked at her. She's exaggerating. Ronan removed his suit jacket and placed it carefully over the back of a chair. Black and gray tattooing showed beneath his damaged cuff when he rolled it once over his forearm. Did I authorize you to question her? No. Did I authorize you to touch her? Doyle's mouth tightened. Ronan, she was our target for almost a year. You expect everyone to forget that overnight. Elena watched Ronan cross the room. No rush. No raised voice. The ventilation fan hummed above them, pushing air that smelled faintly of electronics and stale coffee. Ronan stopped directly in front of Doyle. I expect my orders to be followed immediately. Doyle shook his head. Your orders changed because she got inside your head. Ronan took Doyle's security badge from his jacket and dropped it onto the table. You're done. Every man in the room went still. You can't be serious. Your access ends tonight. Your vehicles, accounts, and crew assignments transfer before midnight. Doyle stared at him. After 18 years? After one direct order you decided didn't apply to you. Doyle's eyes moved toward Elena. For her. Ronan stepped sideways, cutting off the look before it reached her. No. For me. He pointed toward the door. You forgot who gives the orders. Doyle did not move. Ronan reached past him, keyed the operations console, and personally revoked his credentials. One monitor flashed red. Access terminated. The sound of the system confirmation was soft, almost harmless, but everyone in the room understood what it meant. Doyle picked up his coat. At the doorway, he stopped beside Elena. People around him don't stay protected forever. Ronan was between them before Elena could respond. He opened the door himself. Try threatening her again, and you'll discover how permanent this order is. Doyle left. Silence followed him down the corridor. Ronan turned to the remaining men. Make this clear to everyone. Elena Vitale is not to be followed, searched, questioned, used as leverage, or touched without her consent. Anyone who has a problem with that can hand me their badge now. Nobody moved. Elena looked at the men, then at Ronan. Hours earlier, she had been the outsider surviving because he allowed it. Now his own organization had been forced to recognize a boundary built around her. Ronan picked up his jacket and walked toward the door. Elena followed, then stopped beside him. You just removed a man who served your family for 18 years. He disobeyed me. Because of me. Ronan met her eyes beneath the cold fluorescent light. Get used to the distinction, Elena. You're not under their authority anymore. He opened the door and waited for her to walk through first. You're under mine only when you choose to be. Elena found Patrick's old phone inside a locked drawer Ronan had refused to open for 11 months. The safe house was silent except for rain ticking against the high warehouse windows and the low electric hum of the security monitors. A single pendant lamp threw warm light across the steel table as Ronan placed a scratched black phone between them. Patrick carried this the night he died, he said. Elena picked it up carefully. The glass was cracked across one corner, cold against her fingertips. And you never unlocked it? My people tried. Your people also thought I killed him. Ronan's mouth tightened. Point taken. The phone demanded a 6-digit code. Elena tried Patrick's birthday. Nothing. Ronan's. Nothing. She looked at the black stag tattoo disappearing beneath Ronan's open collar. You said Patrick drew that at 15. Ronan glanced down. Yes. What date? He frowned. August 19th. Elena entered 081915. The screen unlocked. Ronan stopped breathing for half a second. How? People don't always choose important numbers, Elena said. Sometimes they choose moments nobody else would think mattered. The battery warning flashed at 9%. Ronan connected a charging cable while Elena opened the message history. Most conversations ended weeks before Patrick's death. Then she found an encrypted thread hidden beneath a banking app icon. No contact name, just initials P. K. The messages were fragmented, cautious. Patrick had written them himself as drafts, never sent. Elena scrolled. If Ronan finds out now, he'll try to stop me. Ronan leaned over the table. Keep going. Another draft. The accounts aren't being used to hide family money. Someone is using family money to buy people outside the family. Elena's finger paused. Ronan reached past her and scrolled himself. Judges. Police. Campaign staff. Someone has been building this for years. Black Harbor, Elena said. Ronan did not answer. The phone suddenly vibrated in his hand. Battery at 7%. Elena opened the final draft, timestamped 8:51 p.m. the night Patrick died. Meeting S.B. at 9:30. She has copies. If she's right, the person behind this sits at our table. Ronan stared at the words. Sophia Belandi. The parking garage photograph had placed Patrick with her 12 minutes later. He wasn't meeting an enemy, Elena said. He was meeting a source. Ronan pushed away from the table and paced toward the windows. Rain distorted the orange streetlights outside into long trembling streaks. Elena followed, carrying the phone. There's more. Read it. She hesitated. The next sentence was not about Black Harbor. Ronan has spent his whole life protecting the family. I don't know what happens when he learns the family may be what he needs protection from. Ronan turned around. His face gave Elena nothing, but his hand closed around the edge of the windowsill until his knuckles whitened. Patrick knew, he said. He knew something inside my family was wrong, and he deliberately kept me out of it. Maybe he thought he was protecting you. That worked out well. Ronan crossed back to the table and took the phone. Instead of searching for another message, he opened his own contact history from the night Patrick died. Elena saw 17 missed calls from Patrick. All unanswered. Ronan stared at them for several seconds. Then he set the phone down. I ignored everyone. Elena said nothing. We fought. I told him if he walked out, not to call me when whatever mess he was creating came back on him. His voice stayed level, but he could not look at the screen. He called 17 times. Elena moved the phone away from him. And somebody made sure you spent the next 11 months blaming me instead of asking what he was trying to tell you. Ronan finally looked at her. The man who had once crossed Chicago determined to kill Elena now placed Patrick's phone in her hands. From now on, he said, you see everything I see. Elena lasted 12 minutes before Ronan broke his own promise to treat her like an equal. The safe house kitchen still smelled of burnt coffee and rain damp wool when he took Patrick's phone from her hand and locked it inside the steel cabinet. What are you doing? She asked. Ending this for tonight. The pendant lights cast hard circles across the concrete floor, and water tapped steadily against the warehouse windows 30 feet above them. Elena folded her arms. You just told me I see everything you see. You do. Ronan turned the key. Tomorrow. That's not how everything works. He slipped the key into his pocket and walked toward the security monitors. Elena followed. You don't get to decide when I'm useful and when I'm supposed to go quietly to bed. You haven't slept properly in 2 days. Neither have you. I'm used to it. Of course you are. Ronan Kearney, professionally immune to exhaustion, bullets, elevators, and basic human cooperation. He stopped. You nearly died in that elevator. And there it is. Elena stepped around him. Every time something happens to me, you turn it into another reason to control where I go, what I know, and who I speak to. His jaw tightened. Someone tried to kill you twice. Including you. The words landed cleanly. Ronan went still beneath the blue glow of the monitors. Elena immediately wished she could pull them back, not because they were false, but because they were true. Yes, he said, including me. He reached into his pocket, removed the cabinet key, and placed it on the desk between them. Take it. Elena stared at the small brass key. What? You want Patrick's phone? Take it. You want the garage code? I'll give it to you. You want to walk out that door tonight? I won't stop you. Stop doing that. Ronan's brow lowered. Doing what? Turning every argument into some dramatic test of whether I'll leave. Elena pushed the key back toward him. Maybe I don't want to leave. Maybe I want you to stop deciding what I need before asking me. The ventilation system hummed overhead. Ronan's eyes stayed on her. You should want to leave. Why? Because being near me has nearly gotten you killed. Elena laughed once. That is an incredible sentence coming from the man who originally planned to do it himself. Exactly. You really don't hear how insane you sound. Ronan stepped closer. I hear it perfectly. Then stop acting like I'm some problem you can solve by putting me behind a locked door. I'm trying to keep you alive. I didn't ask you to. No, his voice sharpened for the first time. You just keep walking into rooms where people want you dead and expecting me to stand there calmly. Elena closed the remaining distance before she realized she was doing it. Why does that bother you so much? Ronan looked down at her. The warehouse seemed suddenly too quiet. Rain ticked against glass. The refrigerator motor clicked off. Because I know what it feels like to get there too late, he said. Elena's next argument disappeared. His hand lifted as if he meant to touch her face, then stopped halfway. He let it fall. That hesitation did more than contact would have. Elena caught the front of his shirt and kissed him. It was brief, startled, more collision than surrender. Ronan froze for half a heartbeat before one hand closed around hers. Not pulling her closer, not pushing her away, just holding on. Elena stepped back first. Neither spoke. Ronan touched his thumb to his lower lip, staring at her as though the entire balance between them had shifted without permission. That, Elena said, breathing unevenly, was a mistake. Ronan's gaze dropped to her hand still trapped in his. Probably. He released it slowly. Elena turned toward the bedroom. Behind her, Ronan said, Elena. She stopped. If you do that again, don't expect me to pretend it changes nothing. By morning, Elena and Ronan had silently agreed that the kiss had never happened, which lasted until another man made Elena laugh. Gray daylight filtered through the warehouse windows, turning the concrete floor silver while the smell of fresh coffee and toasted bread drifted through the kitchen. Ronan stood at the counter in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, black and gray tattoos exposed along both forearms, reading security reports as though nothing had changed between them. Elena sat 6 feet away with Patrick's phone, equally committed to the performance. Coffee? Ronan asked. Already have one. That's mine. Elena looked at the mug in her hand. Then you make surprisingly good choices sometimes. His eyes lifted. Hers stayed on the phone. Nothing happened. Exactly as planned. The steel garage door opened 20 minutes later, and a dark SUV rolled inside. Ronan's security chief, Declan Walsh, stepped out carrying 2 duffel bags and a cardboard tray of breakfast sandwiches. He was younger than Elena expected, maybe 32, with an easy grin that looked almost illegal inside Ronan's organization. So you're Elena. Ronan immediately looked up from the monitors. Elena noticed. Depends who's asking. The man who just drove 12 miles for decent breakfast because Kearney apparently thinks black coffee counts as food. Elena smiled despite herself. Finally, someone reasonable. Walsh handed her a wrapped sandwich. Egg, cheddar, bacon. I guessed. You guessed correctly. He didn't, Ronan said without looking away from the monitor. Walsh glanced toward him. Was that criticism? Observation. Elena took a bite. Warm butter and pepper cut through the bitter coffee still on her tongue. Ignore him. He's been unpleasant all morning. Walsh raised an eyebrow. Only this morning? Elena laughed. Ronan closed the security report. Slowly. Walsh. Yeah. Why are you still here? Elena turned her face toward Ronan. He arrived 90 seconds ago. He delivered what we needed. Walsh's grin widened. I suddenly feel extremely needed somewhere else. He placed the duffel bags beside the table and headed toward the garage. Elena waited until the door shut behind him. That was subtle. Ronan reopened his report. Whatever territorial malfunction just happened. Nothing happened. Interesting phrase. His fingers stopped on the page. Elena took another bite, watching him over the sandwich wrapper. You know, for two people pretending last night never happened, you're doing an impressive job reminding me of it. Ronan set the report down. I wasn't jealous. I didn't say jealous. Silence. The heater clicked on beneath them. Elena smiled into her coffee. Ronan walked past her toward the duffel bags and began checking their contents. Clean clothes, radios, spare phones, medical supplies. Walsh flirts with everyone. He offered me breakfast. Exactly. Elena laughed again. Ronan zipped the bag harder than necessary. She stood and crossed the kitchen, stopping on the opposite side of the counter. Does this bother you? What? Me talking to another man? No. Me laughing at another man? No. Me kissing you? Ronan finally looked at her. The humor vanished between them. Behind Elena, a security monitor emitted a soft electronic beep as one camera changed angles. Ronan stepped closer, but unlike the night before, neither of them touched the other. That, he said quietly, bothers me for a different reason, which is because I can't decide whether you did it because you trust me now or because you forgot for 5 seconds that you shouldn't. Elena's smile disappeared. She set the coffee down. Maybe I don't know either. Ronan nodded once and stepped back first. Elena caught his sleeve before he could turn away. But don't mistake uncertainty for regret. His eyes dropped to her hand, gripping the tattooed edge of his forearm. Elena released him. A second later, she picked up her coat and tossed his across the counter. Come on. Ronan caught it. Where? My father's house. I want to see him myself. Ronan studied her for a beat, then reached for the car keys. This time, when they walked toward the garage, he did not order her to stay behind him. He matched her stride. Marco Vitale tried to burn the ledger before Elena reached the kitchen. The back door banged against the wall as she entered, and the sharp smell of scorched paper cut through the sweeter scent of tomato sauce simmering on the stove. Her father stood beside the sink in shirt sleeves, feeding torn pages into a stainless steel pot, where orange flames curled around handwritten columns. Ronan came through behind her and closed the door, blocking the cold draft from the alley. Dad. Marco froze. Elena crossed the tile floor, grabbed a dish towel, soaked it beneath the faucet, and smothered the flames before he could add another page. Steam hissed upward. Gray smoke rolled beneath the cabinet lights. What are you doing? Marco looked past her at Ronan. You brought a Kearney into my house. A Kearney has had 2 men outside your house for days keeping you alive. Elena pulled the half-burned ledger from the pot. Why are you destroying this? Marco reached for it. She stepped back. Ronan moved automatically, then stopped when Elena lifted one hand without looking at him. He stayed where he was. Marco noticed that too. This doesn't concern you, he said. Someone framed me for Patrick Kearney's death, Elena replied. Ronan spent 11 months hunting me because of it. I've been shot at, trapped in an elevator, and driven out of my apartment. So unless that book contains your lasagna recipe, it concerns me. Marco's face tightened. The kitchen clock ticked above the refrigerator. Outside, tires whispered over wet pavement. Elena opened the ledger. Old dates. Shell companies. Consulting fees. Routing numbers written in her father's neat accountant's hand. Then she saw an entry from 6 years earlier. Black Harbor, reconciliation. Her thumb stopped on the page. You knew? Marco looked at the floor. Ronan said nothing. Elena turned another page. Kearney Construction. Harbor Development, LLC. Municipal Strategies. Names she had spent days tracing were sitting in a notebook that had apparently lived 20 minutes from her apartment. How long? She asked. Marco rubbed both hands over his face. Elena, how long? I did bookkeeping for people connected to the Kearneys when you were in college. Ronan's posture changed. Connected how? Marco looked at him. Your father's generation used outside accountants for businesses they didn't want linked directly to the family. Ronan took one step forward. Elena blocked him with the ledger against his chest. No, he answers me first. Ronan looked down at her hand, then stepped back. The simple compliance made Marco stare. Elena lowered the book. You knew what Black Harbor was when I told you I was being blamed for Patrick. I knew the name. And you let me run. I was trying to keep you away from it. Elena laughed once, sharp enough to cut through the ticking clock. You let me believe my only mistake was doing my job. Marco gripped the edge of the counter. The first time Black Harbor appeared in my accounts, it looked like a reserve fund. Then payments started going somewhere they shouldn't. Campaign consultants, private legal retainers, people whose invoices never matched any real work. I asked questions once. He looked toward the dark window. A man came to this house the next morning and told me questions were bad for families. Elena glanced at Ronan. His face had gone still, but he made no move toward Marco. Instead, he pulled out his phone, opened the security feed showing the two guards outside, and placed the device on the table where both Vitales could see it. Nobody comes through that door without Elena deciding they do. Marco stared at him. Why would I trust you? Ronan's answer came without hesitation. You shouldn't. She should. Elena looked back at her father. Then give me the rest. Marco opened a lower cabinet, removed a false wooden panel from beneath the sink, and pulled out a second ledger sealed inside a plastic bag. He set it in Elena's hands. I kept records because I knew someday somebody would need proof. Elena broke the seal. Marco's voice dropped. And because Black Harbor was never just Kearney money. He met her eyes. I know who taught them how to build it.